When you receive a high ball that you want to hit hard, it's smart to hit to the person who's closest to you. If they're closer to you, that means that they'll have less time to react to your shot than the person who's farther away. When hitting shots that you're trying to land in the kitchen, whether a dink or a drop, it's often smart to hit cross court. The net is lower over the middle of the net, and the distance is longer. Cross court balls into the kitchen are high percentage shots. The further away you are from your opponents, the more time you will have to handle their shot. And so a return of serve that is deep, that pushes them behind the baseline, will mean that when they hit the ball to you, when you're up at the non-volley zone, you'll have more time to handle it. It's very likely that your opponents want to return serve and run to the non-volley zone, and you can't really stop them. But if you hit your serve deep and push them behind the baseline, that'll make it a longer distance they have to run to get up to the net, and that'll take them more time and more effort. If your opponents are at the baseline and you're at the non-volley zone, and they hit a hard ball to you to volley, it can be smart to play the ball back deep. If you hit the ball deep, you may not win the point, but if your opponents are far away from you, they likely can't do much damage. If you and your opponents are both up at the net, the chances are good that they're hoping for something high and slow that they can hit hard. If you receive a low ball yourself, it's smart to reply with a low and slow shot of your own, called a dink. That way they're forced to hit up and can't do much damage. When your opponents are at the net, they're hoping for something high that they can hit downward and hit hard. But if you play a low, slow ball, known as a drop, and force them to hit upwards, they're less likely to do damage. If your opponents are at the baseline and you're at the net, and they play a low fastball for you to volley, you might consider playing a soft, drop volley that lands at least once in the kitchen. This will make them run. A high and slow return of serve gives your opponents lots of time to set up to hit their next shot, but a low fast return of serve gives them less time to prepare, which might be good for you. When you hit a slow high serve, you give your opponents a lot of time to set up to play their return, but if you play a low fast one and give them less time, they might have more trouble doing exactly what they want with the ball. If you and your opponents are both up at the net, and you think that your opponents expect a slow ball, a dink, it might be smart to surprise them with a low fastball, sometimes known as a flick. If you think that your speed can overpower their volleys, a good flick will cause a high ball or an outright miss. After you return serve, you probably want to go to the non-volley zone. If you hit a low return of serve, you will have less time to get up there before your opponents hit the third shot. If you hit a higher return of serve, you'll have more time to get up to the net because they'll have to wait for the ball to bounce. If your opponents are poor movers and they're up at the net, you may consider playing a lob. A high ball that forces them back in the court might make it difficult for them to retrieve the ball and hit an effective shot. But watch out, too short and they get to smash it, too deep and your lob is out of play. If you return serve down the center of the court, either of your opponents can play the next shot, and that means that they have all the options. If, however, you aim towards a sideline, you get to dictate play by controlling who plays the next shot. Returning serve down the center of the court is a good idea for two reasons. One, your opponents could get confused, not knowing who should play that ball. Second, by aiming towards the middle, you can miss 10 feet to the left or 10 feet to the right, and the ball is still in play. After returning serve, it's smart to run towards the net, to stop at the non-volley zone. By shortening the distance between you and your opponents, you'll put pressure on them by giving them less time to react to your shots. You're also more likely to receive a ball that's high, which means you can hit down and hit hard. Hitting the return of serve with some kind of spin is a good way to cause trouble for your opponents when they're hitting their third shot. If they don't judge the spin well, they might find themselves off balance and have trouble hitting a good ball. When you're serving, you have control, and by aiming your serve well, you can aim for an opponent's weakness or even make them move off the court. So instead of hitting the ball down the center of the court when you're serving, why not pick one side or the other, make them stretch, or make them play a shot they don't like? After serving, it's smart to stay back behind the baseline, not because you know where the return of serve is going to go, but you must follow the two bounce rule, and by being behind the baseline, even if your opponents return deep, you'll have time and space to set up for the ball. It's much easier to hit a ball well if you're on balance and well set up when you do so. So when you're receiving a ball, think about moving well so that you're not reaching for the ball. Doesn't guarantee success, but it sure will improve your chances. When you're up at the net and your opponents lob you, your first impulse should be to try to play an overhead smash. This is an opportunity to hit down and to hit hard. By letting the ball bounce, you turn an offensive opportunity into a neutral or defensive one. Your serve is a great chance to cause some trouble for your opponents. Using side spin might make the ball bounce in a way that they're not expecting. It'll make it harder for them to hit a great return of serve. With your opponents at the net, a low fastball, known as a drive, can be an effective third shot. If you think you can overpower your opponents and cause them to either miss outright or pop up something high, a third shot drive can be an intelligent play.